Welcome everybody, really pleased to see so many of you today. Really appreciate it, the support that you give our charity. So just a bit housekeeping rules that your microphones will be muted unless you want to ask a question. But if you want to ask a question, can you submit them in the chat area, either to everyone or directly to Lucy? And then you might have a question that you don't want everybody to see. So if you put it in the chat area, then and everyone can see it, or directly to Lucy, and then Lucy can manage any questions that need to be asked on the way, and she's allowed, but you're all allowed to unmute yourselves, but we'll probably get it done quicker if I just get on with it, really. And just to remind you, this session is being recorded. So again, if you don't want to be seen on the screen, then please just take your cameras off. The agenda for today is we're going to introduce everybody to the committee, and then we have to do the formal AGM, which is what we've done in the past year, finances, plans for 2021, the election of the officers, and then we'll do a little bit of a formal handover to Lucy from me, and then we'll do the poster competition, which all the kids are really excited about, and then we'll get onto the bit that I know that you're really interested in, and I appreciate this is the boring bit. Big question and answer session at the end, and we've got lots of our PCD teams on the line today who are ready and waiting to answer your questions. So to start, everybody knows me, I'm Fiona Copeland, and we're just going to go through the committee, and everyone's just going to introduce themselves. So Lucy, can you tell everybody who you are?
Hi, I'm Lucy. I've been working with the committee since 2014.
Okay, B.
Hi, I'm B. I'm current treasurer, and I've been working with you since 2014 or 13 as well.
Okay, brilliant. Abdullah, are you there?
Hi everyone, I'm Abdullah. I've also got PCD. I'm going to be the new treasurer.
Brilliant. Katie?
Hello, my name's Katie. I have PCD as well. I joined the committee end of last year, I think, around October, and I do the social media and website updates.
Okay, and Gary and Myra, you can do it together as you live in the same house.
Go.
I've got PCD, and I've been on the committee for about 15, 16 years, and Gary's my husband. And you can say your bit now.
current husband. Yeah, Gary, I've been on the committee for that length of time as well. I deal with sending out any PCD branded goods to people running events. So if anybody's running an event in the future and you need t-shirts, running shirts, pens, highlighters, or PCD pamphlets with information, please get in touch and I can ship them out to you.
Brilliant, thank you. Charlotte?
Hello, I'm Charlotte. My daughter, who is Evie, 11 years old, has PCD, and I'm responsible for the newsletter. I've also been organizing the PCD medical board meeting as well, which we've now delayed, of course, till next year. So looking forward to next year instead.
Thank you. New?
Hi, can you guys hear me? My computer just crashed, but I'm hoping that you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
My name is Nu Tran, and I'm mother to a 10-year-old daughter who's got PCD. I've been a trustee since 2015, and I'm the children's representative for the charity. And I'm also a member of the Parents and Patients Public Reference Group for the merger between the Roy Brompton and Guy's and Thomas's.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, Sylvie, are you there?
I don't know whether they can see us or not, but we're all introducing ourselves.
Susie,
not sure whether Sylvie's there. Terry, are you there?
Who's Terry?
Terry, are you still? Terry, on the committee. Can you still see us?
All introducing ourselves.
Susie, you're not on mute.
Hi, yeah.
Can you hear? Oh, right, sorry. So
yeah, we can hear and see you very well.
Apologies.
No problem.
Right, I'm Terry. I've got PCD, and I joined the committee around about 1990.
when it first started, and I was originally an adult contact, but I'm semi-retired now.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, Sylvia, are you there now?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sylvie, and I joined after Terry because she invited me to join the committee, and yeah, it's been quite an adventure. I was saying in an email last night that when I was diagnosed, it was called immotile cilia syndrome, and so much learning has taken place. So yeah, and I've been an adult contact for a while. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. All right, Susie, it's your turn now. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I found the little buttons again. So sorry, I'm a bit technologically challenged with this whole thing, and I was actually trying to do it on the computer, but we're now on the phone. I think, can you see Julia as well? Yes, yeah?
Possibly.
No?
I can't see anybody at the moment.
Yeah,
but
we can.
Okay, so I'm Susie Shanks, and I've been on the committee now for a couple of years. About 3 years ago, we set up a Scottish regional PCD group, and I'm very involved in that because my daughter Julia, who you can hopefully see here, say hello, Julia.
Hi.
She's got PCD, she's 12 now. So I'm on both committees and trying to get the Scottish side of things going.
Brilliant, thank you. Is Adele there?
Yes,
Hello. Hi Adele, do you want to introduce yourself?
yes, I'm Adele Clough. I'm an adult patient. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 47. And like Susie, I became a former member of the Scotland Committee a few years ago. So I sit on the UK and the Scotland Committee, and I tend to represent the adult patients in Scotland attending cross-party groups for rare diseases and lung health, and organising various events with the rest of the hard-working committee.
Brilliant, thank you. And last but not least is Poonam. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Poonam. I have PCD and I've just recently joined the committee as an adult rep.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, so what we normally do at the AGM is we just have a little talk about what we've done in the last year against our objectives. So we provide support, which is our main function for patients with PCD. And we, up until recently, we had a helpline, which is actually a telephone line that came through to one of the committee members, but to talk to patients, and we also have lots of emails providing support to patients. And we've decided this year that actually the helpline actually wasn't used very often. It was costing us money, so we've now cancelled this. And we ask people to contact us through the website or via email, and that seems to work really well. And if we need to have a conversation, we obviously call you back. So that's working really well now. We've got a website which is still regularly used as a source of information to our patients. Last year we had 8,705 users, and year to date this year we've had over 10,000 users, which shows that our website is a really useful source of information for patients. And obviously this year's been a bit different. Emails, yeah, we help. Some of the things we get asked to do with in the emails is we help people fill out their disability living allowance and PIP forms, and then we also help direct patients to get the right care. So if you've got a question as a patient and you know you can't get an answer from your clinical teams, then we'll always help you with that. So and then regularly we have PCD days. So we have PCD day normally in Milton Keynes, and last year we had one in Glasgow. So we tend to do that. We're obviously going to have to rethink how we do those in the future because of what's happened this year. And then social media, we've got an active social media, which is Presence, which has been really helped along with the help of Katie. And now we've got 1,300 followers on Facebook, which has increased by 118 a year. And we've also on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram. And we've also got Health Unlocked, which is a forum for people to talk about PCD. And we've got 480 members on that, which is an increase of 105 since last year. The other thing that we've always tried to do is raise awareness of PCD, and there's still evidence to say the earlier you get diagnosed with PCD, the better your prognosis. And so we're really trying to get to as many places as possible to raise awareness of PCD and of the work that we do and our great services that we have from the NHS for PCD. So last year The committee, between us over a 12-month period, attended 8 conferences, various meetings to represent PCD family, family support group, and raise awareness of PCD. Lucy went with some of the staff from the Brompton to the BTS conference, and she was also interviewed for a podcast with the Naked Scientist. Katie and Abdullah went to the Cambridge Rare Disease Summit in September. Adele and Susie and Julia went to the Rare Diseases Day at the Scottish Parliament, and Gary and Myra also went to the House of Commons. And Susie also went to the MRC Festival in Edinburgh. And I had a bit of a quiet year for me last year, but I did go to the Royal Society Mucociliary Clearance Conference, which is quite difficult to say, in March, and I also spoke at the Genomics England Research Conference in November. The other thing that we do is we promote research. So we regularly review grant applications, we help with the dissemination of results, and we also help recruit patients. And we also give grants to students to attend medical conferences, so the BTS, the ERS and the ATS. We encourage people to take part in the 100,000 Genomes project. I don't know whether Diane's on this call, but she was one of the people that actually got a diagnosis through that process. And that is something that I'm particularly interested in, and I'm happy to represent the PCD Family Support Group going forward on the 100,000 Genomes project. And some of the other studies that we've been promoting this year have been the azithromycin trials and the quality of life questionnaires, the sperm analysis and fertility study, and some of the research that Claire Hogg's team has been doing at Brompton using artificial intelligence to diagnose PCD more accurately. And we've also supported Professor Jane Davis in conjunction with the British Lung Foundation in her bronchiectasis study. So we are promoting lots of research, and it's really exciting to see lots of research happening. The main other thing that we've been doing, particularly in the last few months, is supporting the NHS and other bodies to deliver our services. So the diagnostic services is working really well, and there's lots of innovative ideas on how to encourage that for our patients to improve that service. The paediatric service is also doing really well, and we'd like to wish Phil Caciuti a very happy retirement. He's leaving the Leeds team, and we welcome Dr. Evie Robson to the team, working alongside Dr. Eduardo Moya. The Leicester team have also recently rebranded themselves and are now going to be called the Central England Management Service, just to make sure that people know that they don't just cover Leicester and Birmingham. So that's good, and we've been enjoying working with them. We're also working hard with the NHS to ensure that the new adult service is implemented quickly. Sorry, I'm just going to mute you all again because I was getting some noise then. We've been working with the NHS about the new adult service, which unfortunately has had a few delays because of COVID-19, but we're hoping that the service will be fully up and running by September. And we're also working with, which Susie spoke about, and Adele, to develop the Scottish services with Andy Belly and James Charles in Scotland. And then we're also finally working with Brompton with the King's Health Partnership, which you mentioned earlier on. So we're making sure that the PCD support group's interests are well represented in all of this work. So I think, B, would you like to go through some of the fundraising activities and the money side of what we've been up to?
Of course. Okay, so I think I'll start by thanking the generous PCD community that raised money for us. There's a few pictures on the screen now, but there's loads more individuals than we could show. So I'm just going to give you some names. We've got Anna Phillips, who did an Ironman, Tom Thale, who did the Edinburgh Half, Nina Peters, Lawrence at Picture Gallery, Charlotte Richardson, Katie Dexter with a cake sale, Alex Bamford, all those involved in the Glasgow Kilt Walk, and also Nationwide's Halloween Treats, and of course many more. These fundraising activities keep the charity going, so they're really important. So should we move on to the next slide? On to the numbers. So as you can see, we've got quite a healthy cash reserves of around 36,500. And these are really important for keeping us going in times when we don't have much money coming in, or the expenses are greater than the money coming in. So let's look at the breakdown. Income was broken down into, we had 13,482 coming in donations and fundraising activities, which some of those I mentioned a few moments ago. We usually have 6,000 coming in from NHS grants, so some of that is still coming. And then we had £59 of bank interest. And then going out, we had basically £10,000 spent on events, marketing and conferences. So those are sorts of things that are like this AGM, which was not virtual last year, and all the marketing and conferences that we support. Support costs came to around 4,500. And if we just look at the totals there, you can see we've got 18 coming in and 14.5 going out, which if we move on to the next slide, we can see we've been able to use the extra money that wasn't spent to add to our cash reserves. And just looking at the breakdown, what this means, even though we've got more money in the cash reserves, we actually did have less money coming in overall in donations, not by a great margin, just by £780. But we spent a lot less on events, and this is because we didn't have a medical board meeting last year, because this is a biannual event, and also we had no Northern PCD Day because we felt like this was covered in the Scottish events. So let's move on to the final one for me, which is, what does that mean for 2020? Is there a slide?
Seems to have disappeared. We were doing so well, weren't we, Bea? Sorry.
It's all right, I'll just talk you through. There was a slide about what this means going forward. And it just means that it puts us in good stead for uncertain times. As I mentioned, we've got quite a healthy cushion to survive should donations dry up and expenses start increasing. And even still, we still had a lot of fundraising this year so far. So as of May, we had about £4,500 coming in donations. I think a lot of this will be for events that have been postponed, but it's still really great. And basically, going forward, I think because of the cushion, the forecast is that we'll be able to survive at least for 2 years should we be in a difficult situation money-wise. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Bea. I'm sorry we lost a slide. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Well done. Yeah, I'd like to keep you on your toes in your last AGM. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, so the plans for 2021 is that, so we did a full review of our aims and objectives with the help of my husband Stuart. Actually, we did this in October, and then we've streamlined the activities that we do. And so now that the PCD teams are now up and running, and for children and adults, we are able to refer quite a lot of people back to patient issues, back to the teams that look after them in hospitals for resolution. And so I think it's you know, we've streamlined quite a lot of the activities, and hopefully Lucy and Abdullah will have all of your support, and I wish them lots of luck in leading the committee. We've obviously continued to support our patients during coronavirus, and we've had lots of inquiries from patients and their families, and we've been working with the NHS to make sure that you are well looked after. We've purchased some sports equipment for people that are isolating, and we've also been working with the researchers in Switzerland and how COVID-19 affects PCD patients. And I would really urge you, if you haven't signed up for that project, to sign up for it, because the more information that we have, the better it is for us to understand how it affects PCD. So to date, we only have one patient has been identified in the world that has PCD and has had COVID-19. And it was a female over 60, and she didn't have to go into hospital, and she's doing very well. So that's really good, encouraging news. But again, we need to make sure that we get as much information about it as possible. So if you don't know how to do that, you can find the information on our website. We've also been going to be working with the adult centres to make sure that we embed the adult service. As you know, this was something that I was really passionate about, and I know that it will happen, and I'm really pleased that the NHS have funded it, but we do need to make sure that it gets up and running, and we will give them as much help as they need. We're going to continue to work with Brompton, with a new site, and obviously, hopefully we'll have our medical board meeting next spring. So there's still quite a lot of work to be done this year, and I'm sure the new committee will manage it really well. So the bit we need to do now is we need to formally elect our officers. So I need to have, I'd like to nominate that Lucy Dixon is our new chair, and if someone could second that, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Abdullah Ihsan is going to be our new treasurer. Again, I'd like to nominate him. If someone could second that, that would be great.
Yeah. I'll second that.
Lovely, thank you. So these are the two formal roles that need to be voted on. And then, so going forward, Lucy will be the chair, Abdullah will be the treasurer. Katie and Charlotte will do the communications. Myra and Poonam will be adult contacts. Susie and you will be the children's contacts. Gary's going to do merchandise and leaflets. And then our Scottish contacts are Susie and Adele. And we've had formal resignations from Anna and Beatrice. And Beatrice, as she said, has been on the committee for nearly 7 years, and she's been our treasurer for the last 2. And thank you really much, very much, Bea, for all the hard work. And we know how it's been hard for you in the last year, juggling, having a new baby and doing this. And so we really do appreciate it. So thank you very much. Anna has been on the committee for 3 years. Anna is a fertility nurse, and she's more than happy to help you going forward if you've got any advice that needs to be done. And then obviously I resigned last year and worked at my notice for a year. So I'm going to continue as a volunteer along with Sylvie and Terry. Sylvie and Terry have been with me for the whole journey, and they've been really, really helpful. We've had some great days out, and I'm really grateful for their support through all of it. And we wish you well in your semi-retirement as well, but don't think we're going to let you go. We will still obviously use you as volunteers as often as you're willing to come and help us. So I'm hoping that we will get to go to the BTS at some point, Terry, and sit there and have a good giggle like we have done in previous years. So we have still some positions to be filled by the volunteers. So we still think it would be a good idea if we have patient and parent reps for each PCD centre. So if anybody would like is keen to do that, then please give us a shout. It would be useful if we had a Welsh representative and a Northern Ireland representative. This has become more and more apparent during the COVID crisis that this would be useful for you to have, because the rules have been changing a bit. It would be helpful if we had somebody in those areas. And also, we're still going to need to organise events, whether they're in person or remotely. So again, it would be great if we could have someone that could help us with doing events. So if you're up for volunteering for those, then that would be really great. So, does anybody have any questions? Lucy, you're on question duty.
I am on question duty.
Do we have any questions?
The questions that we've got so far, I'm going to save for the Q&A because they're very sort of medical related mostly.
Okie dokie.
I can't see any committee related ones.
Okay, so we've got our Instagram, Twitter handles and things on here, so, and all our emails. So please contact us after this if you've got any questions specifically about the NGM. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. The next formal bit of the meeting, we've got 3 minutes to spare. Oh my God, we're so efficient, Lucy. So now the bit we've got to do now is the bit that I've not been looking forward to, is I'm going to do a formal handover to Lucy now. So I'm just going to say that it's been great, and I've been really enjoyed being your chair, and I knew you'd cry. So it's been really great, and I last year I did write something, so it's been an honour and a privilege, and I've made many lifelong friends through my work with charity, and I will continue to represent you whenever I can. I resigned last year and have worked out my year's notice, and it has been a very eventful year for me on a personal basis, and the last few months have been really busy with the pandemic. So I hope you'll continue to support Lucy as you've supported me. I'm now handing over to a new and refreshed committee who I believe have really got all the skills to do the job, and they'll probably do it much better than I've ever done it. So I think, you know, you are in really safe hands. All of them are bright, inquisitive, intelligent and young and enthusiastic, and I wish them lots and lots of luck. That's it for me. And Lucy's allowed to say 2 minutes. If she says any longer, I'm going to switch the whole meeting off.
That's okay. You can mute me when I've had my time.
Thanks.
Fiona, so I'm pretty sure I had a bet on with Claire Hogg about whether or not you'd cry, and I think we're all tearful now. But I know my time is limited, but there are a couple of things that we couldn't say goodbye without mentioning, and I think that's that. In general, for anyone who's newly diagnosed with PCD, when you Google PCD, one of the first things that you come across is the story of your family, and you know, Gregor and Ewan, your sons who both have PCD, and then you and Stuart who've done absolutely so much for this community. And so I think as a community, we owe a huge amount of thanks and gratitude to what you guys have done and letting us share your journey. I know Charlotte did an amazing job of outlining all the things that you've achieved whilst being with this committee last year, and I know you've been trying to escape for a couple of years, so I won't have time to go through everything that you've achieved because it is absolutely incredible. But there are a couple of things that I'd like to just zoom in on, and firstly I wanted to say a huge thanks to Stuart. So Stuart is Fiona's husband, and it was a bit of a bumpy year for everybody, I think. And that's before coronavirus. And there was a point in September where we were not sure how the future of the charity would look. And Stuart came in and he really, really helped us streamline our ambitions, streamline our thoughts, and develop a strategy that will secure the future of the charity. And so I just want to give my absolute heartfelt thanks to him for helping with that, because yeah, we would, you know, it's made a world of difference. I think we all feel very, very secure and confident that this charity has a brilliant, bright future. So thank you, Stuart. But Fiona, I think if you look at how many people are on the call today, 73 cameras, this is probably the biggest PCD day that we've ever had. And I know we had 100 people that were trying to join. And this is all sort of a product of your work. And it's thanks to you that we can all be here today as a community with a kind of shared, I was going to say shared interest, but a shared experience of PCD. And I think that is something that, of all the things that you've achieved, it's a uniting theme, that you just have this incredible power to bring people together, whether it's getting the doctors in the room to sort of, you know, chat out and work out how we're going to work out this adult PCD service, or what the advice is for adults and children during this sort of COVID time at the moment. But on a very personal level, this is something that I'm so grateful to you for. So I have PCD, and I was diagnosed when I was 4, and I didn't meet anybody with PCD until I was 21. And I was having a really rough time at uni, and I have to not cry. I was having a really rough time at uni, and I'd had a couple of infections, and I was having sort of 8 weeks of IVs at one point. and I was really miserable. And I reached out to Fiona, and we'd been talking a bit, and you put me in touch with B. And so B, until about 5 minutes ago, was our treasurer. And we had a chat on the phone, and I think that call lasted about 2 hours, and it was so weird, because if you're someone with PCD and you're the only person in your family with it, your family are very accepting of PCD, but they don't know what it's like personally to live that experience. And I think that was the first time I'd ever spoken to someone, and it was like looking in the mirror, because someone spoke back and they sounded like me, and we were coughing, and we were talking about, isn't it horrible when you get like snot down the back of your throat, and you know, and you're coughing up phlegm in meetings and all this stuff that a lot of people would say, oh, that's gross. It was a very normalized thing. And I think I'll never forget that conversation or that moment, and it's kind of gone from there. And I owe that experience to you. And I think there's a lot of people on this call that owe the experience of feeling connected with others. And it can be a very isolating experience to have PCD. And so you have absolutely, you know, lassoed everybody and drawn a ring around us all and pulled us into this community. And so if there's, I don't think I'll ever be able to fill your shoes, but if there's one thing that I will really try and honour what you've created here with, it's that I will try my best to keep the community together and to keep us growing and to keep us getting stronger and stronger. Because I think, especially in these times, it's so lovely to have this shared experience with people that know what it's like. And so from all of us, I know that we owe this to you. We owe where we are at the moment to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fiona, can I just say something, please?
Yes, you can.
I up the family support group when my son Alex, who is at this meeting, when he was 2 and he's now 33, and this has blossomed to the most amazing thing. And I have to thank Fiona for being the most amazing chairperson, because when I took over, well, she took over from me, I just didn't need to do anything. She just took it on and took it off and has done what she's done. So a huge thank you from me and from my son Alex too, for doing what you've managed to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Well, you started it. It was your baby, and I just managed to look after it for a long time. So probably not as long as I wanted to.
You fed it up, Fiona.
Yeah.
I have another person that would love to say a few words right now, and that's Catherine, all the way down under.
I'll try not to get emotional, because I already feel like I get emotional. I want to say a huge thanks to Fiona, because she's become a really good friend. And I was diagnosed with PCD when I was 11, and I started the group back in 2013, and I had no support. And then I stumbled across Fiona, and she became one of my best friends and my best supporters. And I really appreciate everything that she's done for us. And I don't think PCD in Australia would be where it is today, because there's been plenty of times that I would have given up. But Fiona kept telling me that it was a journey and not a race. So, and I was lucky to spend time with Fiona and the family when I came over to the UK a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's just, we're really grateful for you, Fiona, for what you've done.
Thank you, Catherine. Now, hopefully I'll see you again in Melbourne one day when we're allowed to fly around the world again. So
yeah, I see a lot of tears on this call.
Thank you.
As a tiny, we did say thank you to Fiona last year with a present that was perhaps a bit better than what she's got today. But as a gesture, we really wanted to have a big party today to give Fiona the send-off that she absolutely deserves. And I think we're going to have to put that on the back burner for maybe a year. But as a small gesture, I don't know whether she has them in the room, but we have sent Fiona a set of cupcakes with a photo of each of the committee printed on each one, so that we can be with you.
I haven't got them in the room. Hopefully someone might bring them up.
I can see that Alex is enjoying this.
I think someone's bringing them. I can hear. No, that shows they're listening.
Come on, Gregor.
Yeah, here you go. Look at this.
So the committee are with you in spirit.
The committee are with me. I mean, how hilarious is this? Yeah, but they know me quite well because they know I love cake.
Yeah.
So
what we didn't intend was the delivery person actually dropped off a gender reveal cake as well, but I think we don't need to answer any questions there. So I just like to say one more time, Fiona, like, it's just incredible. Working with you has been amazing. You've been an incredible friend and mentor, and it's not the end, but you've set us up to just go from strength to strength. So thank you
very
so
much. Thank you. It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
While we're all drying our eyes and having a little glass of water to refresh ourselves, I think Katie's going to take us through to the poster competition, which is what any kids on this call have definitely been very, very patient in waiting for this.
So Katie, I think I need to hand the reins over to you, don't I? Yeah, I've handed over to you now, Katie.
Brilliant, thanking you. Right, so hopefully you can all see my screen. Can I have some nods? Yes, okay, good. So yeah, we'll just come away for some tears for a little bit, and I can stall while Lucy and Fiona go sort their makeup out. I would just to start, I want to say absolutely fantastic posters that we got given over the last few months. They were all amazing, and what we had to do is that we had to decide to add another prize to the mix because we couldn't decide between which posters should win. So I sent out the posters to our committee and asked them all to vote. And then we ended up with about 3 ties, so that didn't really help. So I went through them again and again and again, and eventually we have 3 prizes. We have a first place prize, we have a runner-up prize for the under 10s, and then we have another runner-up prize for the 10 to 16 bracket. So to start with, we're going to do the under 10s, if I can remember my presentation. So there's also all of the other posters that we got given. So thank you again to everybody who entered. You can have a quick look. What I'm going to do after this call is put them all online as well, so you can all see the fabulous artistic skills that our PCDers have. So for the under 10s, drum roll, have we got drum rolls, anybody at home? Is Charlie for the under 10s. Congratulations, Charlie, for your poster about PCD and me. You'll see it on the left hand side here. And you can see that I particularly enjoyed the artistic drawing of our logo right in the middle. I thought that was fantastic. So again, we'll put these posters up so you can look at them in more details later. The second runner-up prize, which you might have just seen because I forgot the order, sorry, is actually for the 10 to 16-year-olds, and this is awarded to Mia McMurray. Well done, Mia. And there's also a lovely photo of her with her poster in the bottom left. Her poster has got a lovely big rainbow stemming from the lungs, and her poster was about the importance of physiotherapy and exercise, which has been a big thing for us while we're in lockdown. So here's a good place to say thank you to everybody who was involved in our exercise week photos as well, and sending in all of the interesting things that you've been doing, as well as keeping your exercise and physio to stay healthy. So please keep continuing to do that, and if you have any photos that you want to share with me, always send them to our email at comms@pcdsupport.org.uk. So now for the winner. More drum rolls. If you've got drums at home, I'd like to see them going. Yes, thank you, Susie. Our winner of our competition for 2020 is Abigail Baker. Well done, Abigail. You won our first place prize. So you can see on the left, she's written us a beautiful poem about PCD and how it affects her. So thank you very much, Abigail, and thank you very much to everybody who entered our competition. What we're going to do as well is I'll email everybody that has won the prizes, but everybody who's participated, because we have a little present for everybody who entered. So thank you very much again, and feel free to get in touch at any point if you'd like to get involved with any social media or websites. Okay, now we're going to do our Q&A. Is that right, Lucy?
Yes, that's right. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself.
Right.
So
I'll stop sharing my screen.
Stop sharing if we do that.
And then we can
so
see
I've got
your
lots
face.
of questions, and there's quite a few questions that are coming in. So just to let people know, if we'll try and cover everything, but some of the questions have a common theme. If anything isn't covered, just email me and we'll try and get that answered. Now, I just trying to have a quick look at who's on the call doctor-wise. We've got Daniel Peckham, hello. And I saw Manjit a while ago. And can I just check, Fiona, have you seen who else is on the call?
We've got Mary Carroll is on.
Fantastic.
And
Hi, Mary,
Chris
sorry.
is on.
Brilliant. Hi, Gemma. We've got Gemma as well.
Pretty is on.
But I saw Wolf earlier as well.
Wolf is on.
And Amanda.
Sorry, I definitely was meant to do this while I was crying.
Simon Range is on. He's
okay,
just
hi Simon. Fab. Let's get going. We've got enough of the team to be able to.
Yeah, Elaine is on. Alison is on. So yeah, we've got quite a few things. So
that's great. So the first question, and I'm going to ask Daniel Peckham this, if that's okay. Daniel, can PCD patients take part in the Oxford COVID vaccine trial? I thought you'd like that.
I think what's really important is usually when you do vaccine trials, you tend to go for healthy people, because if you have any adverse events, etc. So I think it would be probably not advisable. So they should be going for healthy volunteers. And then once that's safe and it's proven safe, then absolutely the priority will be people with underlying lung disease.
That's fantastic, thank you. And then maybe can I just ask you this as well, Daniel, because it kind of links in. Realistically, are we looking at shielding until we find a vaccine? So let's maybe deal with this with adults, given the sort of update to children at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really difficult question that we're being asked a lot, and we get a lot of phone calls about for lots of respiratory diseases, including cystic fibrosis and PCD. I think what we've got to do is understand that the government is giving clear dates, I suppose, that we come out of shielding. And I think we've just got to move on, and we've got to start actually coming out, and we've got to start being sensible. The key thing is actually what we've got to do is, first of all, watch what happens in terms of COVID and the prevalence. So if, for instance, we start seeing increased prevalence, then we're going to have to go back. But I think that what people need to do is be really sensible. So, for instance, it's making sure that we're wearing masks in the appropriate situations, so we're keeping our distance, that you're not putting yourself at risk. You're making sure that if you do go back to work, that you can ask whether or not you could potentially work at home, and that actually the workplace is actually assessed for, you know, all the COVID rules. So I think personally, the time's is going to come for us to come out of shielding, but we've all got to be really sensible. And I think we've just seen very clearly last weekend with people behaving in a stupid way at beaches. So the risk is actually other people. But I think you can probably be very sensible, and this is a time that people need to talk to their workplaces and start being sensible, because I think a lot of people will be able to work at home.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really important. Can I ask Mary Carroll? We've got a question here about face masks. So I've got a couple of questions on face masks, so I might just try and put them together. And obviously, if any of the other clinicians want to chip in on this as well, please do. So one question is, if we have, with regards to face masks, what are the best ones to use and how do we obtain them? And someone else has asked as well about whether they think it's appropriate for children to be wearing face masks in school. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind starting us off on that, and then if anyone else wants to chip in.
Well, I think that I'm not absolutely sure where we would get the best face masks. I think any facial covering is better than nothing. So I'm really advocating people do wear face masks rather than don't. I would say that certainly for us, that's in Southampton, we would do all we can to provide you with surgical masks. So you could look to your own service to get some masks from them. And I would say in that case, surgical masks that we use are the best, rather than, you can go online, but they're quite expensive. About a face mask, what you need is, you need a little thing over the nose to be able to put it on, and something that is something called clip to your nose and go over your ears, and also to put it underneath your chin. It needs to be single use, really, rather than, you don't need to, it's best to have a disposable one. If you're going to make your own, which you can, and there's lots of little things on the internet about that, you've also got to remember that it's single use, so that pop it in a plastic bag take it home and put it in with the washing. Definitely anything is better than nothing, and it is worth having. What was it, children as well?
Yeah, and about sort of some, you know, if some schools are kind of requesting for children to wear face, or should parents be sending kids to school with face masks? Where it's and maybe I don't know whether Wolf, I see you.
Yeah, Wolf, what do you think about the children?
Well, I think, can you hear me okay? I mean, I think we'll get guidance over the summer that'll be clearer on this. It's a difficult balance, isn't it? I mean, I think it's a helpful thing. It's clearly protective to others as well as partially to yourself. It also, the difficulty is that it may cause a bit of stigmatization of kids if we're saying that PCD kids should wear them and other kids aren't. So there's a little bit of balance around that. I suspect it'll become clearer over the winter what the advice, over the summer what the advice will be for next term as the term goes by. But I think it's a very reasonable thing for people to wear face masks. The difficulty practically is obviously our kids have sort of rhinitis, snotty noses and cough a bit, and that's going to soil those over the course of the day. And it's being practical about how we advise their have spare ones just in case at school and these sorts of things. I think there's quite a lot to work out around face masks and its practicalities. I think if people will give us a little chance to reflect on that over the coming weeks, we'll give some advice as the summer goes by through for next term, as we get a better idea about what the government are going to advise for schooling in general. I mean, I think that will vary school on school. So my secondary school, for my older kids, have said they're going to get their kids to wear face masks at school next term. That may be a universal thing, that may be an individual school thing. So I think time will tell. But I think where the advice is to wear face masks, I'd certainly agree with that. Within schools, if schools are saying that they don't want their kids to wear face masks, then there's a question about whether our kids should, and that's something we can consider over the summer if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important to remember that this is a sort of new experience for everybody, and so we know that the advice is sort of being pulled together as things develop. Obviously, on the face mask thing, is I think we've spoken about this in the last Q&A. Important to remember, as Mary says, that to make them sure they're single use, because one of the questions we had was, you know, could it do more harm because of, you know, if you keep repeatedly using the same face mask, could you be catching viruses sort of within, you know, from that. So I think, Mary, you sort of answered that by saying it's important, single use, and making sure that you wash them in the washing machine between uses.
Can I add one thing? Sorry.
Please do, yeah.
Sorry, Dan. So I think there's a lot, it's one of the common questions we get, and it's, you know, there is a lot of misunderstanding around this. So I think one of the difficulties is the terminology. So I think there are two reasons to wear a face mask, and the primary reason it's being advocated in public is to protect other people, so not to protect the wearer. So the idea behind that is that you reduce effectively your droplet spread by having some covering over your face. Now, in that context, what you're actually wearing is probably not as important as actually wearing something. So that's why the non-medical grade face coverings are being advocated for that. And, you know, there's lots of stuff on the internet about this. You know, if you look at the general advice is, you know, more than one ply is better than one ply, 3 plies being the best. Filters probably don't add an awful lot. The type of material you use is important, but it's probably not the most important thing. So some sort of man-made material is actually better than cotton, but generally the important thing is something that's tight weave. Now, there is not a huge amount of evidence that public wearing of medical grade face masks protects the public. Now, there is, obviously, we do use that in a healthcare scenario because obviously the exposure is much more prevalent. In that situation, there's basically 3 grades of mask. So down at the FFP1 grade, which is effectively what the surgical mask is, that is essentially doing the same job as a face covering. So it's not providing the wearer with a huge amount of protection, but it is providing some. If we're dealing with someone with coronavirus, particularly if they're generating aerosols in a tight situation, in the medical sphere, we would be wearing an FFP3 mask, which is not really practical for people to wear out and about because it's pretty unpleasant to wear these for periods of time. And certainly if you're trying to do anything aerobic activity, you're just going to melt in it. So, and you know, getting hold of those is very challenging at the moment, even for healthcare scenarios. If you do see people wearing those on the street, You have to note a caution on that is that you'll see that often some of the models of that will have a one-way valve. So in other words, stuff can come out but can't come in. They're useless from preventing you infecting other people, because effectively all it does is it focuses your breath into a jet, which, you know, directs at the person you're facing. So generally, I wouldn't recommend people wearing FFP3 valves or FFP3 masks or the FFP2 masks outside, which is also called the N95 in America, just to make things confusing. Sounds like we need to do a fact sheet on this, doesn't it? But it is quite a difficult thing. So I think summary message, some sort of face covering when you're out and about. If everyone wears them, we all protect each other, particularly in enclosed scenarios.
Thank you. Daniel, did that cover what you were going to add as well?
Yeah, yeah, no, I suppose what I was going to say is, I mean, interestingly enough, we're only allowed FFP1 masks when we treat people with COVID in our hospital. I think what's really important though, it's like in medicine, we stop wearing ties and short sleeve shirts. Now, ties do not cross infection with MRSA, but what it does is it changed our whole mentality. It also changed the way people see you. So if they see you wearing a mask, they might keep more distance. So that's one of the things I would say. I totally agree with everything that's been said, is that actually a lot of people wear masks to stop giving people infection. But I think the whole concept of wearing a mask, so for instance, if you get on a bus, it will make people much more aware and important. But at the same time, what is extraordinary when you see people in the countryside wearing a mask, I promise you, you will not get COVID from the cows and the sheep. And what's really important is people should try really enjoy their lives if there's nobody there. And, you know, it is not through 5G or cows or sheep. It is unfortunately human beings, and it is probably oral fecal routes and maybe also sputum. So I think that's a really important thing. Just be really sensible, make sure it's as comfortable as possible. But I think the masks are very useful and very important when you are in close proximity to human beings, even if it's just a warning sign.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got, this kind of leads nicely into another question that we've got. And again, it's a sort of, we've got an adult and a peds take on it. So a lot of people are asking about sports and whether they can, so we've got some people that, children that enjoy gymnastics, and it wouldn't be feasible for them to wear a face mask, and it's quite an indoor kind of sport. Got questions about that, and a question about adults sort of exercising and things like if gyms reopen. So if I could ask, who hasn't spoken? Manjit, are you happy to answer that? And then anyone else can chip in as well. Thank you.
So the question was about gyms opening and risk to PCD patients.
Yeah, and whether they can, whether people who enjoy doing gymnastics, for example, can go back to their gymnastics classes when it's indoors and stuff like that.
I think, again, like everything else, it is something that we don't have any clear evidence about, being that it's a completely new scenario. And again, the thing would be to be sensible about it. I think when gyms will open eventually, I'm sure that they will be COVID risk assessed, and clear, guidance will be available as to, for example, cleaning between users, for example, and distance between users. So, so to answer the question, it would be, in my opinion, similar risk to everywhere else, hopefully by that time. Now, the thing about the sequence when these indoor spaces are opening is very much based on science. And the reason why gyms haven't been allowed to open yet is because they are at a higher risk than, for example, shops or pubs. And the time or the, when it will be allowed to open will be based on the science available about how much community spread is taking place. So the risk reduces, as the risk reduces at each particular point, for example, first the shops, then, pubs and outdoor spaces, then when the risk reduces even further, gyms and swimming pools. So when government opens it, I'm hopeful that it will be at the same level of risk to everybody else.
Okay, thank you. So, and I'm just going to move on to another question. And as I said earlier, we might not have time to get through everything today, but we will try to get these answered at some point. So there's a couple of questions. So I would like to know, as someone with Cartagena syndrome with mild bronchiectasis and no regular treatment apart from daily airway clearance, am I at greater risk of catching COVID? So that's one of the questions that we got. And can I ask Simon, would you like to answer that?
Very quickly, no. I mean, the reason people with many chronic diseases are shielded or thought to be at greater risk is not because we think they're more likely to catch the coronavirus, unless they're spending more time in maybe riskier environments such as healthcare institutions. But it's maybe that if they do get coronavirus, the chance of that progressing onto a more serious problem such as pneumonitis or being able to deal with that pneumonitis is more challenging. So effectively, you're no more risk than the next person, as far as I'm aware. I don't think anyone's going to, if anyone knows contrary, please shout up, but I'm pretty sure that's the standard message at the moment. But, you know, your risk of progression is more. The difficulty with that is that's a very uncertain equation. So obviously it's you know, the person asking the question was obviously saying, well, I've got mild disease. You know, the shielding advice for PCD and other diseases is a very blanket thing which encompasses everything and every patient with every severity. And apparently that doesn't make any sense, but we just haven't got the information to actually give granularity to the answers about, you know, that person with this set of risk factors is going to have this amount of risk. You know, that may come out to a greater extent as we go down through this, but we really aren't at a position where we can do that at the moment. So we've obviously gone with a cautious approach.
So I think, again, Simon, I'll stick with you if this is all right, because there's another question that leads on from this, which is, if as a PCD sufferer you think you're showing early symptoms of COVID-19, what advice could you give to hopefully preventing a worsening health crisis? And I guess this is something that a lot of people are a bit worried about, because, you know, a lot of us get temperatures and a bit of a cough, you know, increased.
Yeah, I mean, my approach to all my chronic respiratory disease patients so far has been pretty similar, and PCD no exception, is that, you know, the symptoms of COVID can range from nothing right through to being very severe, and they, you know, can affect the respiratory system, your upper airway, your gastrointestinal system, obviously systemic temperatures, etc. So in other words, you aren't going to be able to differentiate a standard flare-up, if such a thing exists, from coronavirus situation. So, you know, the way we approach it when people come into hospital is everyone has got coronavirus until proved otherwise. And there are certain things we can do within the history. You know, obviously you look at people's risk factors. So if someone's been locked away shielding for the last 3 months, their chances of coming in with coronavirus is pretty low. What we're tend to be encouraging is everyone to have effectively a rescue, you know, treatment pack at home of antibiotics and whatever else they use. And I think if you do develop any of these symptoms, we would expect you to start that as you would do normally. I think the other thing that you may need to do, as with every exacerbation, is increase the frequency and maybe the depth of your chest clearance. You know, obviously you've got systemic features, particularly temperatures, etc. Make a paracetamol, maximise your fluid intake. You know, think about infection control and not infecting other people, and have a plan B. So in other words, if it does start to deteriorate, and there are certain red flags, I would say probably your level of breathlessness is probably the main thing around that. And there does seem to be a particularly dangerous period of coronavirus. So in other words, people tend to end up coming into hospital not at the onset of symptoms, but generally about a week or so into the illness. So by a week or so into the illness, if you're getting better, great. If you're not getting better, particularly if you're getting breathless or got persistent temperature, you really probably should be contacting some medical help at that point.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, I have, do any of our paediatricians in here have a particular fondness of ENT issues? Because I have a question for you. Put yourself forward.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we have a question here which is about glue ear. So actually someone, I'm going to let them ask this question themselves. So Suzanne, you had a question, I think, about glue ear and children. Are you on this call still? Oh yes, you're muted, Suzanne. Sorry. Brilliant, thank you.
Hi, sorry. Thankfully, he did actually private message me back with the answer. So,
okay.
So basically, both my children have got the one PCD gene, and one's more phonotype than the other, but both suffer from glue ear. And because of this, ENT department were basically saying, well, they've got glue ear, but because we don't know whether they've got PCD, we're not going to treat. So it meant that my children have now, for the last few years, have just suffered from glue ear. And I just didn't think that was very fair, seeing so we hadn't had the true diagnosis of PCD. Why should my children still suffer? So it's a case, do we try grommets, do we not, etc. But it's just trying to get someone to put those grommets. But thankfully he actually said that in most cases what they do is fit hearing aids to actually help them, because grommets have been seen to be unsuccessful. I hope I've answered that correctly or understood that correctly. Yeah.
So I think the general consensus is that if you have PCD, I should probably let someone else actually say this, but if you have PCD, that grommets probably aren't that advisable and hearing aids sometimes are a bit better. Manjit, could you just say that nicely?
So I suppose the key thing here is that it's about the effect of glue ear on the child rather than the glue ear per se. So you know, in children without PCD, what happens is if you put a grommet in, it heals by itself, and the grommet eventually falls off, leaving a normal, I suppose, with some scar probably, eardrum. Whereas in children with PCD, it is unlikely to heal that well. And that is why ENT consultants are very reluctant to put in grommets if there is a background of PCD. So on the other hand, what we focus on are two things. One is about the effect of the glue ear, which is hearing, and therefore we concentrate on hearing aids. The second is the preventative aspect of glue ear. We know very well that nasal toileting with nasal rinses or you know, nasal physiotherapy, all those things help actually the middle ear to be clear of fluid. So that is the other aspect that we concentrate on. Now, in very rare circumstances, there are some reports of grommets being managed well in PCD patients, but that should certainly be with very specialist ENT advice.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. We've got a couple of questions that we've sort of covered that are repeating. So I won't ask all of these, but for maybe Wolf, could you answer this? Are doctors concerned about the new government reduction of social distancing to 1 metre? So this is the English government has reduced sort of social distancing to 1 metre plus, and the impact that this might have on kids that are going back to school.
Good question. I can't
you
say.
Can tell me where to go if you prefer not to answer.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think for kids as a whole, I mean, I guess there's two things to say. I think around social distancing, I think that the further you can potentially stay apart, the safer you're going to be in essence. Okay, so whilst the rule maybe don't be closer than 2 meters, 1 meter, if you can be 2 meters away, that's going to make that risk a bit less. The balance is, for all this, is around as you get closer, you're just more likely, if someone's got coronavirus, to pass it to someone who's adjacent to you. So distance helps with that, and also the amount of time you're spending in that contact is going to be increasing risk to that as well. I mean, I guess it flips to another question about kids in general, where, you know, as we've talked to in our advice, we're just a lot less concerned about coronavirus in kids than we were several months ago, because the data does getting severe illness in kids as well. So there's lots of sort of nuances to an answer around this. I mean, as you get closer, your risk is going to go up a little bit. If you can stay more distance, that's sensible. I think the reality is we have to be pragmatic with all this as well. You know, schools aren't going to go back, and education is fundamental to our children moving forward as well. And if we keep it at 2 metre distance, then education suffers dramatically. So there's lots of balances in this, and there's not a black and white answer. I think my advice to kids is, you know, if you can stay 2 metres away if possible, but in those sort of circumstances, if it's possible, then that would be very reasonable. But 1 metre should be fine. And the important thing is we continue to monitor it. So if we find that we move to a 1 metre rule and that seems to lead to increased infection, we need to reflect on whether that was the right thing, and in which case do we need to move to distancing a bit more. So I guess in kids, to answer the question directly, in kids I'm not that worried about a 1 metre rule, because I'm not that worried about getting coronavirus in general.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we have another question that was actually not medical, which was about, someone said, oh, is the Northern event ending and are all future Northern events ending? Just to reassure you guys, we obviously have had to cancel all of our events this year because of coronavirus, and I think we probably do in the long run have to think about how we gather and how we meet, just because of sort of infections and things like that. But certainly we will run events. It might be that we run virtual events until it's safe to get together again, but it's not just the North event that's been cancelled this year, it's everything really. Okay, I'm gonna go for a couple more questions. If you have got questions that you want to ask directly, can you just let me know in the chat? There are a few questions here. So what about this one? Someone's worried about children being sent home for displaying COVID-like symptoms, and what they should, you know, how parents can sort of navigate this. Does anyone want to chip in on that from our medical teams?
I'm happy to talk to that a little. Is that because the question around the fact they've got symptoms which may be consistent? This is going to be a bit of a challenge as we go into the next school year, I'm sure. I think the important thing is for schools to have an understanding about what the baseline symptoms for that particular child is going to be, which is going to vary from kid to kid as well. So some kids are going to have a bit more of a baseline cough than others. And the key is it's not just those symptoms, because that's their baseline. Yeah? It's a change in those symptoms that's the important factor, and parents need to take some important responsibility around them noting that change as much as schools will. But the schools need to be aware of what the baseline symptoms are, and that's going to be harder for when their kids are moving up to new classes where the teachers aren't aware of those. So that's a piece of work around parents educating the teachers around the baseline symptoms of their kids, alongside the PCD centres talking to schools around that as well. But it's important that, you know, baseline symptoms aren't considered to be anything to do with coronavirus, because that's what our kids have as their baseline symptoms. So it's the difference between those two, really. If I may just very briefly, just to comment about face masks, from Mary's comments, I'm not sure, certainly my centre hasn't said, listen, we got bucket loads of surgical masks to give out to all your kids. So I'm not sure at this point whether there's going to be a wide amount of face masks available from the centres at this point for patients. I think if I could suggest that patients make their own to start with, and if those become available, then that's something we'd let you guys know about. I just don't quite know that's going to be the case at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple more questions coming through and a couple of people that want to ask questions. So one question that we had submitted to us, and I'm going to let this be an open one, so come forward if you're happy to answer it. And I'll try and pronounce it. With vestibular dysfunction often being misdiagnosed or completely overlooked, will we see vestibular dysfunction added to the list of issues associated with PCD? And will diagnostic centres and support groups raise awareness of the possibility that vestibular dysfunction can affect those with PCD? Any takers? Daniel? Would you?
Yes. I
Yeah.
think with the development, certainly in terms of adults, but also in paediatrics, is the link with ENT should really pick these things up. I think it also makes you wonder whether or not we should be using things like tobramycin, which I do certainly see some patients. So I think we even got to think about other medications. So I think people are going to become much more aware. I think it's going to become much more of a standard process once we really integrate and develop the services moving forward. I think we're much more likely to really understand all the different aspects of PCD as we become larger and united across both peds and adults. and as we also bring in experts in other fields into the area. So I think that absolutely, we've seen this very much when I first started in cystic fibrosis, is actually the key was bringing in the experts from other areas outside respiratory medicine. And I think certainly in Leeds, we've got a link now with the NT, and I think that in other centres, there's a very close link with the NT, and it's going to be part of the annual assessment.
Great, thank you so much. I have a really interesting question from someone on here, but they've not said whether they're happy for me to say their name. So someone on here has a daughter who is a physiotherapist, and she has had a positive test for coronavirus and she has PCD. So if she hasn't completed the survey, please, 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 could you ask her to? But the question that's being asked is that she's had a positive test for coronavirus, she's got PCD, and she's now really suffering with costochondritis. I hope I've said that right. And is this likely to go away if she's, you know, she's still struggling with it? Simon, you're nodding. Would you be happy to answer this, please?
Oh, that's a tough one. I thought that question was going in the sense that if I had a positive test, can I get it again? Which is a common question.
Let's yeah. Could you answer that as well? I like that.
I mean, that was quite an easy answer. We don't know.
That's great.
I mean, let's be honest. We know we've dealt with infectious diseases for tens of years. We've known about them. It's very likely that if you've had a positive test and a positive symptoms, and particularly if you've had a positive antibody test, that you will have a degree of immunity. What we don't really know is how much immunity you will have and how long that will last for. Looking at some of the coronaviruses, if you look at the MERS, SARS viruses, their immunity around those looks like it's fairly long-standing. If you look at the the common cold coronaviruses, and coronaviruses cause about a third of common colds in the UK, it's relatively short-lived immunity. So we don't know where we're going to be with that, but time will tell. Going back to this question, I mean, I'm guessing I'm not aware of costochondritis being a particular part of the coronavirus syndrome, but we're learning about it, so it certainly could be. Certainly muscular aches and pains are very common, but I've not heard them particularly around the chest. I guess it's a secondary effect from all the coughing and the increased work of breathing. I mean, if that's the case, it should settle down in theory. I think, probably the important thing in that situation is making sure you're taking analgesia and not sort of restricting your normal activity, particularly your physiotherapy. And quite a lot of, pleuritic pain in exacerbations is a very common feature we see, even without pneumonia, with all exacerbations. And, we actually spend a lot of time referring those patients to our respiratory physiotherapists. So actually, this is probably one of those physician heal yourself scenarios, I guess. Hopefully that answers that. But I mean, I'm not aware that costochondritis is part of coronavirus, but it certainly could be. If it is, I would expect it will be self-limiting.
Thank you.
The physio community has seen, there's lots of discussion amongst the physio groups that with COVID-19 that we're starting to see more breathing pattern abnormalities. So people are starting to use their respiratory muscles a little bit differently because they've become quite breathless with coronavirus, and that sometimes that can make the chest work in a slightly different way, which can cause some aches and pains. And costochondritis can be quite common with these abnormal breathing patterns. So it might be worth her being reviewed by a respiratory physio to have a little look at her breathing pattern. We know that breathing patterns are a bit more different sometimes in PCD if you've got a really bunged up nose, and sometimes keeping her nose clear can help with normalising that a little bit. But yeah, she probably needs an individual assessment to look at how her chest wall is moving, and to start to normalise that a little bit to settle it back down. But yeah, I agree with Simon, it can be irritated by lots of coughing, so kind of keeping the pressure on the front of your chest when you're coughing can limit the movement of those little tiny joints and stop them getting irritated as well.
Thanks, Lynn. That's really, really helpful. I've got a genetics question here. Someone has 2 children with X-linked RP, so retinitis pigmentosa, with cyno-respiratory infections on a known PCD gene. Will there be more research into this linked form of both conditions? So I'll leave that as an open question for whoever.
So I reply. Sorry, it's Jane here.
Hi, Jane. Hi.
I replied to this privately actually as well. To say we have got a research program looking at RP and PCD in Southampton. So if people are interested in that, if they contact me directly, I can put you in contact with the scientist who's leading that that project, but that is some ongoing work. So yes, please get in contact, and we'd love to tell you what we're doing and tell you how you can get involved if you'd like to.
There definitely seems to have never been a better time really to have PCD, because there seems to be quite a lot of research going on at the moment. So definitely get in touch if you think that applies to you. Right, I've got one more question, and then I'm going to leave the last question to our fabulous Katie. So the question I have is, oh gosh, someone's saying this is their first time doing PCD event. Are there any virtual groups for children to chat socially about their experiences, routines and daily life? At the moment, so this is a non-medical question, which I will have a stab at answering. At the moment, no, not really, because obviously there's a lot of safeguarding issues with sort of just putting kids in a kind of chat group and things like that. But definitely going forwards, we are going to think a lot about how we can continue to keep our community really well connected. We realise that's really, really important, especially sort of these times, and if you're shielding as well as an adult, and we are sort of working quite actively on thinking how we do that. So Katie, you had a question as well, didn't you? And if there's any more, we've got time for maybe one or two more.
Yeah, so lots of questions are about coronavirus, and mine is also. So my work is actually in London, and I commute down from Leicester, and I'm not really worried about being in work because they're very good at hygiene standards because it's a biological lab. My issue is with transport on trains and underground, and do any of the PCD adult cares have any suggestions for when that might be applicable, or what we should do if we need to travel into work with PCD?
Well,
Mary, yes, please.
Sorry, I think there's no doubt that public transport and it's tricky, actually. So, and especially when it's crowded. I'm sure that's what happened with in London, why there was such a peak in London, because of the underground, and being so crowded. I expect the only thing you could do, you travel down every, you can't travel down every day, or do you travel down every day?
Yes, not at the minute, obviously, we're luckily to work from home, but eventually my work is quite hands-on lab based, and I will need to be on site. So I travel down on a normal cross-country train down from Leicester, and then travel into London from there.
Well, I can't say that it isn't a concern.
It is. And
I mean, the only other thing you could do is possibly travel, you know, very, very early in the morning. I can't actually see a way around it. I think it's a realistic concern.
I think Katie, it's Simon here. I think, you know, if we could get them, and that's the big limiting step, this may be one of those situations, if you sat on a train, that wearing a proper FFP3 mask might be appropriate, because that will give you protection. The challenge is, you know, if you can get them off Google at the moment, they're, you know, Amazon rather, they're about 15 quid a pop.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're pretty tight in hospitals. As Dan says, I think I slightly misspoke earlier, we're wearing effectively surgical masks when we're seeing coronavirus positive patients, unless they're aerosol generating. And, you know, it's a real challenge, but, you know, I think, you know, again, I'd probably wear some form of eyewear. I think gloves are probably not the best thing. Gloves, basically, in that situation, if you're, you know, you should wash your hands and not put your hands on your face, and you should, you know, I'd probably personally carry alcohol gel with me. But I think, you know, gloves in no situation remind you to do that, and your hands are dirty. That's what the gloves are doing in that scenario. There's no real advantage of wearing gloves if you're washing your hands properly. But I think, you know, the trouble with an N95, sorry, or mask or an FFP3 mask is that will give you some protection, but, you know, as we said, they are sort of single use. So effectively it would be one journey. So you're going to need a couple a day, which is going to be a challenge. Although in the height when there were shortages, we were certainly looking locally at repurposing masks. And there is some evidence with some of the masks that you can actually clean them by autoclaving them or putting them in your microwave, depending on the ones you've got. But anyway, maybe we can talk about this if it's offline at some point. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got one more question, which is, we've had a couple of questions similar to this, which is about fertility issues and research into well, we've had 2 questions about female fertility issues, and whether there's research going on in this area at the moment, if there's ways of becoming involved, and sort of what, you know, what that looks like as it stands. So it's quite broad set of questions there. Are any of our adult physicians happy to answer this about active research that they know of about fertility issues in women, and whether there's ways of getting involved?
I know there is research going on in London looking at sperm and looking at fertility, so there is actually research going on, and as I said before, I think this is an area that's going to gradually expand. I think the important thing is also knowing the genetic mutations. So we've obviously got a lot of experts in genetics here online, and I think as we understand the genetics, we know more about the genetics, but certainly there is research going on at the moment, mainly focused really in London, from my knowledge.
Yeah, because a lot of us were aware of the sperm study, and that's been promoted through our website, and certainly if you're male and eligible, please do look at that. But I think there's been less available, or to what a lot of people have seen on female fertility issues.
Lucy, it's Fiona, sorry. There is some research at Imperial. Lady Sue Kim is doing some research, not specifically about PCD, but about rare diseases and fertility. So we've been talking to her and trying to encourage her to do a bit more PCD directly. So, but she's been involved with the male side of that project, infertility project. So, so I think it is coming, but I think it's probably not at the forefront of them. But again, us raising awareness of it being an issue in PCD is encouraging people to do this research. So yeah, so hopefully that it will come up.
So everyone just keep, oh yeah, please go for it.
Can I ask? So I was one of the people that brought up that question because I was told at 32 that I couldn't have children because I'd been through early menopause. And I know that there's another girl here in Australia who's just gone through the same thing. She's had 2 children with IVF, and that's the only way that she could have children in the end. And she's around 32, 33 now, and been told that very low egg count, she won't be able to have any more children. So onset of menopause, so it's about the same age. Don't know whether that's any link or, yeah, it's just, yeah.
Thanks,
Yes.
Go on, Daniel, yeah?
No, I'm just saying, it's, yeah, absolutely very interesting. And I mean, there's no doubt about it, is that, you know, in those circumstances, you would be going to a fertility clinic and being reassessed, etc. But in terms of research, to my knowledge, there's not a lot of going on in that area, certainly in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, which is understandable.
But again, the plus side of our, Daniel alluded to a bit earlier on about our adult services, that now we are going to be seeing more patients, adult patients, and we're going to be able to collect this data. So I know anecdotally, we've got, you know, quite a few people on here that have had PCD and have had children naturally, and some that have had with IVF. But so, you know, there is some anecdotal evidence, but we haven't had to, up until this point, had all our patients in one place being seen by a set of doctors. So we will start to see that evidence. So already we've got that evidence in the paediatric services coming through. We're beginning to see, you know, what some children, how children react to PCD, and, you know, like Wolf did some work last year on the link between BMI and how, you know, how high and how tall and how fat you are as a child on how well you do with your lung function. That's me explaining BMI, Wolf, very in layman's terms there. But you know, we will start to see that in adults as well. We will start to get the data, so we can say actually, you know, 50% of our adult, you know, females have, you know, have had children, or they haven't had children. At the moment, don't really know. So it's all, we're all moving in the right direction, I think. I didn't want to have the last word there.
I'm 51 and I don't think I'm going to go down that track.
I think this, yeah, I think
it's really important to keep, it's really important to keep it at the top of the radar as well. I've got 2 more questions. I keep saying I've got 2 more questions and I'm going to end, but I really do have 2 more questions and I'm going to end. I've had a couple of emails about this in the past week, and about children or parents of children with PCD who have received letters from the government telling them to continue shielding. Now, my hunch on this, and I don't know what the doctors think, is that children were going to be taken off the shielding list, but this sort of happened at the same time as the government reissuing their shielding update. And have they received these letters accidentally? Wolf, you're nodding.
I'll actually answer that. So the government automatically sent out letters to everyone who had been shielding as part of their process. And so we, as you know, put separate advice out regarding children, and the advice for adults is to continue to shield as per the government guidance, and the advice to children is that we're happy that they don't need to shield as of the end of the 30th of June. And that is our advice. So that oversees the government advice on this, and we'll be comfortable with that. And then those letters have come out as well as part of the sort of the national send out a letter to 2.2 million shielded patients, and that's true also of other respiratory diseases. So we're moving a lot of our, well, almost all our kids in Southampton who are managed in our centre with respiratory illnesses are off shielding as of now and next week as well. So we are going differently from the government advice on that, just because the evidence around kids is different really to adults.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Oh,
just a quick comment on that. It also mirrors the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health guidance for children in case of respiratory diseases. Our advice mirrors the Royal College guidelines.
Thank you.
Lucy, I'd just like to add one thing as well. Yeah. Just with regards to the guidance, some patients may receive the letters directly from the government, depending on whether their GPs or their centers have actually nationally registered them. But not all of them may be, but there should be individualized letters sent out from centers as appropriate as well to confirm that they can be de-shielded.
Thank you.
And just also to add, so it may be the case that some patients with PCD should continue to shield, and they'll be contacted by their local centres. So certainly we have a few in Southampton, and other centres will have a handful, a number as well. And so if you'll be contacted separately in that regard. But if you, otherwise you should be able to unshield.
And for adults that are shielding, obviously it's you see a lot in on social media at the moment about the dates of unshielding, and it's important to remember that depending on where you are, these dates are different. So Myra over there gets to be set loose on the 1st of August, I think it is, whereas I'm in Wales and I've got till the 16th of August. So do just make sure that if you're an adult with PCD, that you've checked that. I've got my final question, and then any other questions after this, we're going to have to chuck into an email, I think. But someone has said that they participated in the 100,000 Genome Project 2 years ago, and they still haven't had their results, and how do they get them? And before I ask, I'll let the doctors warm up with a response for that, but I also had this situation. It took me 4 years to chase my results, and it took a very, very long and convoluted route. So do any of the doctors have advice on how people can obtain their results quickly? Because I think this has been a consistent issue with the 100,000 Genomes Project, and that they're not really getting through to the patients. Wolf, you had your hand up.
I can talk to that. So I think the first thing to do is to go to the person that that took the blood from you, basically. So or whoever referred you to the 100,000 Genome Project, and if the 100,000 Genome Project has easily identified genes for you in what's called the clinical area, then that result should be available and you should be able to have it. What's complicated is that a lot of people haven't actually, in that clinical area, been identified, and therefore they've had to go into a research area, and it's only if someone's doing research in that area of the 100,000 Genome Project that that your mutations might be picked up. Across the UK, we've had several meetings of people who are doing research, and we are looking in the research areas. Certainly in Southampton, we're looking at all of our patients who didn't have anything picked up by the 100,000 Genome Project, or only had one mutation picked up, and we're actively looking for the others in research areas. But that's going to take time because it's dependent on research, it's dependent on research funding, which is very limited.
Okay, so if you've been part of that experience, it's worth remembering, because it can take a very long time, worth remembering where you had your blood taken in particular, so that you can start your investigations from there. I think that's about all we've got time for on the Q&A front today. I will comb through the questions. Feel free to email them to the chair address as well, and we'll try and get any other ones answered. Before we go, there are a couple of things that I just wanted to say, which I wanted to just say a huge thank you to the committee, because you guys have all been incredibly supportive of me taking on this position, and I've got to say I was a little bit intimidated and nervous, but I can't thank you guys enough for your support, and you're amazing people to work with, and it's very, very exciting that we're going to continue doing some good work as we go forward. And there's also, I think Katie is prepped and ready for a couple of goodbye messages that we've got for Fiona from our clinical team. So Fiona, get those tissues out right now, because I think you're going to be needing them. So I will let Katie do the honour.
Hi Fiona, from Southampton. We all wanted to say
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then stop recording.
Dear Fiona, hi. I just want to say to you, from all of us here in the PCD team for the North of England, a very, very happy retirement, and to thank you again for your amazing work over the years in terms of supporting all the PCD families in the country and raising the profile of the diagnosis and management of this condition. You have been absolutely instrumental, and you leave an amazing legacy. So enjoy yourself and have a great time, and lots of love from the Leeds Bradford team.
Here, here. Well done. Enjoy your retirement, Fiona.
Yay! Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you.
Hi, Fiona. Just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done for PCD. You've made a real difference. Your leadership and work with the members of the family support group has had a real impact. With the development of the paediatric and now adult clinical service, in addition to the diagnostic service that we started in 2006, the impact you have had will really last and benefit so many. Many thanks personally for your help and support and for championing PCD. I can speak for Leicester, and indeed all of the diagnostic and clinical teams, that we have really appreciated your huge enthusiasm, your effort and your professionalism, and that we are not saying goodbye, just thank you.
Fiona, I would like to thank you on behalf of the patients and parents and my colleagues for all the amazing contributions that you made in terms of developing the PCD diagnostic and management service. We will totally miss your guidance and selfless support. By we, I not just mean we as the team members, but our patients and parents, and we will totally miss your guidance and mentorship as the coordinator of the PCD family support group. Good luck on your next venture and all the very best.
Dear Fiona, I'd like to say a massive big thank you for all your help and support through all these years. At a personal level, you've really helped me, but most importantly, all the hard work and the force behind raising the profile for the PCD patients and the PCD support group has been immense. You brought it up to a national level and to an international level flawlessly. So thank you so very much. I know you've got some exciting plans for when you retire from this post, and I wish you all the very best for this. Thank you.
Hi Fiona, it's been years that we've known each other on and off, right from the beginning actually of my PCD time here in Leicester, working with the Leicester diagnostics team. I think it's a real shame that you're leaving, but in the great scheme of things, you know, everybody deserves retirement. So you go enjoy yourself, and thank you so much for all the hard work and the support you've given to the PCD management services and diagnostic services over the years. All the very best. Take care.
Hi Fiona, just want to say a huge thank you for all your hard work over the years for PCD. The family support group is not going to be the same. All the very best in your new endeavours. Hope to see you sometime in the future. Don't be a stranger. Thank you. Bye.
And that is Fiona's face made out of pictures of cilia.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, my husband had to come and stop me from blubbing. Thank you very much. Yeah, it has really been a huge privilege, and thank you very much. And please stay safe, everybody. Thank you for coming today. And I'm going to go and eat cake now and drink champagne.